child in the dark. Comes and bells, your servant, don't forsake him. Strive, dear mistress, and cure his heart.
I think the effect of Venus in Furs is that musically it's so shocking. I think that's what frightened people. That could have been a song about anything. But that always has been my favorite song. That's the, if I had to say, show me one thing that you do differently than anybody else ever did, I would drag out Venus in Furs. I say, you show me whoever sounded like this.
Severin, Severin, speak so slightly. Severin, down on your bended knee. Taste the whip, in love not given lightly. Taste the whip, now bleed for me. Dreams that would awake me.
I think that was the mood of anything is possible, but let's find something beautiful. To me, the miraculous thing about the Velvet Underground was always not its strangeness, not their difference from what the current modes were, but in their own terms, a very beautiful sense of sound, of rhythm, and of melody.
Sometimes I feel so happy. Sometimes I feel so sad. Sometimes I feel so happy. But mostly you just make me mad. Baby, you just make me mad. Linger on, your pale blue eyes. Linger on, your pale blue eyes. Thought of you as my mountaintop. Thought of you as my peak. Thought of you as everything I've had but couldn't keep. I've had but couldn't keep. Linger on, your pale blue eyes. Linger on.
Have you ever been to Levin?
No.
I think it's gonna be like Easter and Christmas and New Year's and your birthday all together, you know.
If you're going to San Francisco, be sure to wear some flowers in your hair. If you're going to San Francisco,
one day it was announced that we had enough money to go into the studio, and we were going. And I said, oh, okay. We just move our equipment in and start blasting. And then when we had an album's worth of stuff, that means stop.
You killed your European son. You spit on those under 21. But now your blue cards are gone. You better sit so long. Hey, hey, bye, bye, bye.
I think we all had that idea to have a nice, vaguely amateurish sound to this. I guess one of the things that affected the sound of the songs was that all the amps would be on at the same time, of course. And in those days, they weren't so great with baffling and hiding things. So there'd be feedback or hissing and stuff that you really don't hear. But if that stuff was taken out, it would make a tremendous difference.
You really had to let it sink in. Especially if you weren't especially taken with the sensationalistic negativism of songs like Heroin, which I wasn't. It sold, what did it do? It go to 99 in the Billboard charts? As it turned out, it was prophetic, but there was no way to know that at the time. The most significant thing about that music was Maureen Tucker's beat. And Lou Reed's vocal manner, quite remarkably deadpan, and underneath it all, witty, lively, full of its own kind of energy, too. He really understood at some level what that beat was all about and meshed with it perfectly.
By the time the record came out, the initial energy which had gone into making it had kind of dispersed. The enormous Warhol production shows, the light show, the famous light shows at the Dome and at the Trip in LA, no longer existed. That was all over. So this record was almost like a historical artifact by the time it came out, and Nico was no longer with the group. It was all. Then they got it together with a new manager, and with whom they had a pretty good relationship. And here you finally had the original Velvet Underground: Lou Reed, John Cale, Sterling Morrison, and Maureen Tucker. And they went into a recording studio in New York and recorded White Light, White Heat in the summer of 1967. For my money, I think it's the quintessential Velvet Underground record because it's the four of them, because it was produced. They totally controlled it. Sister Ray is probably the best example of that. Sister Ray, which is a 17-minute long song, which of course is very, very unusual, particularly for those days, was done in only one take. And the reason for that was that they just, they were so fed up with each other, and they knew it was a long song, and they knew they didn't have it in them to do it more than once, together in the same room. So they basically said, okay, this is it. Everyone do whatever the hell they want. We're going to record Sister Ray. And if you listen to the track on a reasonably good set of headphones or something, it's quite fascinating because there really becomes a battle between the instruments in there. At one point, Cale turns his volume up on his organ extra high and starts bursting through this organ piece. And you can't hear the drums at all. Probably at its peak at that period, and then there continued to be a certain amount of this tension between Cale and Reed. But as Sterling points out in my book, and as Maureen also said, it created, the music. So then that went on for a while, and then there was the famous instance in which Reed called a band meeting at the Riviera Cafe around the corner from here on Sheridan Square, and Morrison and Tucker arrived, and John Cale wasn't there. And Lou Reed said, John's out of the band, and there was an enormous fight, and everyone started throwing things, and, you know. But basically, to jump to the third album was then made without John Cale. And now this is where you get into kind of all sorts of theories as to whether the Velvet Underground then became Lou Reed's backing band or not. I mean, Reed definitely has to be classed on the same level as, well, I mean, Bob Dylan, John Lennon, Chuck Berry, what have you. I mean, you know, some of these songs are immortal songs, and they define a whole time period. So I think that as a lyricist, as a poet, he's called the Poet Laureate of New York City.
Well, the Lou Reed New York attitude is real. It was just the New York attitude. I mean, you know, you could find lots of people with it. Yeah, I mean, I can't really take credit for copying on a New York attitude, but it was like there was no moral stance. I think that was another thing I try to be really careful with. There's no moral stance to these songs. It was just this happened and that happened, and it presented kind of dry, unemotional.
Got $26 in my hand. Up to Lexington, 125. Feel sick and dirty, more dead than alive. Ooh, sweet mama, I'm waiting for my man. Hey, white boy, what you doing uptown? Hey, white boy, you chasing all women around? Oh, pardon me, sir, it's furthest from my mind. I'm just waiting for a dear friend of mine. I'm waiting for my man.
In an era when the whole notion of rock poetry was a very important one, and when, as usual, Dylan was the real exemplar, no one ever thought about Lou Reed as a rock poet. And in retrospect, it seems to me that he had one of the most authentic and original voices of anyone writing lyrics in the 60s, perhaps the most authentic and original voice. And the reason nobody noticed is that there was nothing even remotely poetic in the appearance of his lyrics. They were very demotic, very conversational, very, to use a word I go back to again and again, deadpan. Now, in fact, he was capable of real flights of lyricism.
That I was born 1,000 years ago. And I wish that I'd sail the darkened seas on a great big clipper ship, going from this land here to that, put on a sailor's suit and cap. Big cities where a man cannot be free of all of the evil in this town, and of himself and those around. Oh, and I guess I just don't know. Oh, and I guess that I just don't know.
Lou was acting very oddly. He told me he was leaving the group, and he was really upset, and we sat there for a while. I didn't put any questions to him or argue with him. He had obviously made his decision. He didn't give me any specific reasons why he had decided to leave. And that was the last night he played with them, as I recall, and maybe he played 2 more nights or something.
We've all really gone our separate ways, and I have no communication with any of them except Maureen, Mo, the drummer. I'm not interested in them or high school reunions. I'm not interested in reunions at all. I like today, what's going on today, and I think it's nice what happened yesterday. I'm very proud of it all, but I wouldn't want to go back.
He's one of the best songwriters around today. His name's Lou Reed. And this is one of his early things. It's called White Light, White Heat.
Velvet Underground is as much the source of everything that's put under the vague rubric New Wave as the Beatles were of everything that was put under the vague rubric rock in the late 60s and early 70s. That is to say that bands which don't like the Velvet Underground, don't use any of their usages, still owe them a debt, because they come out of the negative energy, the critical energy that band instilled in the first generation of punk bands.
I don't have any heroes. They're all useless. Don't know what I want back. I know what I get. I want to destroy.
I mean, distortion was definitely one of the things that we were interested in forcing down people's throats. I mean, it was just like wearing glasses on stage and turning our backs on the audience and just turning up loud and as far as wearing glasses on stage, is because the only reason we wore them was because we couldn't stand the sight of the audience.
It's almost an extension. The 1980s are an extension of the 1960s. I have to admit that. It's as if the 70s didn't exist, as if it went straight from the 60s to the 80s, somehow.
Well, I don't look back at those times at all. I'm very much in the present. When I pick up a magazine or a book and I see my name in it, I always think of that person as not me, but somebody else with that name. So it's like a character in a novel, because I'm really into what I'm doing now in the present anyway.
Warhol Studio. Jed? Hi, how are you? Good. Fred's he's not in yet. Wait a minute, do you want to talk to Sam?
This is a big office now. It's not really a factory. It's not crazy anymore. We don't have zombies coming around like we did in the 60s. Now we have Japanese businessmen. We have, you know, collectors all day long. We have very chic luncheons upstairs, you know. And it's all different, you know. It would be something that your mother would be very proud of.
I had put out a little single, and that's when I found out what was going on as far as young fans and stuff. And then when I was selling my little single over the phone, I just, in my kitchen, calling up record shops around the country, I had my little speech all set. I was going to say, my name is Maureen Tucker, and I used to be in the Velvet Underground, figuring they wouldn't know who this was. And not one of them did I get to Velvet Underground. As soon as I said Maureen Tucker, they knew who I was, and that really surprised me.
I mean, all these people talk about, you know, how they see the influence in this and that and that. You know, it's like the kiss of death, I mean, I would imagine. I mean, there's a cult following here for the Velvet Underground, and anybody would want to say, you know, to the record company, if they wanted to get signed, that they were influenced by the Velvet Underground would be, you know, would be stupid. I mean, it was the last thing you would want a record company to feel was that we're dealing with another Velvet Underground.
Images develop in and of themselves. So once people decide that the Velvet Underground is in fact a depraved group of junkies, whatever their musical talents, then people are always waiting for you to do something strange. But in fact, we had good table manners and paid our hotel bills, didn't break furniture, as people with middle-class upbringings might be expected to do. If we'd done some insane things, it probably would have helped.
We dress conservatively at the best of times, prefer the shadows to the bright lights in the eyes of the ones we love. The bright lights in the eyes of the ones you love. What we see, what we imagine, the eyes tell us nothing. The bright lights in the eyes of the ones you love will tell you nothing, like the scars of imagination. The scars of imagination. The bright lights in the eyes of the ones you love will tell you nothing, except you're the thoughtless kind. So if you grow tired of the friends you made, never, never turn your back on them. Say they were the best of times you ever had. The best of times was the thoughtless kind. The best of times with the thoughtless kind.
If you're not intent on succeeding at all costs, you can't possibly sell out because there's nothing to be received in exchange. So why not do anything you want to, any way you want to? So we had a freedom that most bands deny themselves because they're trying to make it. They're trying to do something. And we were trying to do something too, but we didn't care if it never got out the four walls that we were in.
Somebody shut the door. I knew where temptation lies inside of your heart.
You can talk during this.
I know where the evil lies inside of your heart. Well, get out of here. If you're gonna try to make it right, you're surely gonna end up wrong.
Wrong.
Oh, shut the door. And it's only 8:45. I know. I know where the mirror's edge is inside of your heart. But she didn't play a doll tonight. I know where the razor's edge is inside of your heart. Motown. It's not even 5 feet. Well, if you're gonna make it right, you're surely gonna end up wrong. You don't look like Martha.